Hi guys, it's me, HD, and welcome here on this Friday. Because it is a sprint race this weekend, we have the normal qualifying session here today on what would normally be Friday practice day, and this session would normally be practice 2, but we're getting qualifying straight away, and hopefully you guys are going to join me today for what's going to be a pretty close and exciting qualifying session at the Red Bull Ring. Practice 1 took place, about 3 hours ago, 2.5 hours ago, something like that. We'll get into the results of that session in a moment, and also get into a couple pieces of news before we get into qualifying. But yeah, we'll do that, and also look at all of the teams, how they did in practice 1, and how I expect them to do in qualifying, beginning in about 28.5 minutes time. And I hope that all you guys watching are doing well, and no matter what time it is in your part of the world, hopefully you'll be joining me today to watch along this qualifying session. If you can't watch the session though because you're at work, or you're doing, I don't know, studies or something, obviously it is a work day, so I wouldn't be surprised if some of you watching or listening can't watch the session as well. Then don't worry, I will keep you bang up to date with everything that goes on in this session. And in terms of weather, there is nothing to worry about. It's going to be a hot and sunny day, and it is a hot and sunny day at the Red Bull Ring, a very glorious day at the Red Bull Ring. So yeah, should be a dry session, and we should get, even though it'll be dry, a pretty close session. But let's first get into the results of practice 1. And here they are. Max Verstappen, no surprise about him being in first place, 2.5 tenths of a second clear of Charles Leclerc. To be honest, that is pretty much the gap I expect it to be from Verstappen to the say the closest car that is that isn't Sergio Perez. I think that's most likely going to be the gap in this session. The sprint race, in terms of what it is per lap that Verstappen is pulling out a gap on, and also probably in the race as well. So no surprise there that Max Verstappen is that far clear around such a short lap. George Russell up in 3rd place, looking very quick for Mercedes, not necessarily a surprise there. Sergio Perez 4th, Lewis Hamilton 5th, and then Magnussen 6th, Carlos Sainz is 7th, Fernando Alonso 8th, Mick Schumacher 9th, and Yuki Sonoda in P10. And quickly looking at the top 10, Mercedes thankfully do look to be just as quick as they were last weekend at Silverstone, and as quick as I expected them to be coming into the weekend, where I thought they'd be hovering between 3rd and, say, 6th on the grid. And that is what it looks like going into this session. And we'll see what they can do in qualifying. George Russell has a great record here in, I think, Junior Formula and Formula 1, considering the cars he's driven around here in the past. So we'll have to look out for him. Bit of a surprise that Carlos Sainz was so far down. And I think half a second, was he? Yeah, about half a second off the pace of teammate Charles Leclerc. Now, Leclerc is very quick around here, but you would expect Sainz to be at least a couple tenths of a second closer to Leclerc, but clearly was not. We'll see what he can do in qualifying. And then the rest of the order, below the top 10, it was Lance Stroll, Esteban Ocon, Sebastian Vettel, Valtteri Bottas, Alex Alban, Pierre Gasly, Daniel Ricardo, Zhou Guanyu, Nicholas Latifi, and Lando Norris. In terms of the midfield, the only surprises I can see, really, are the Haas team. I didn't expect them to be that quick in practice 1. Aston Martin look about where I would expect them to be, 11th and 13th. Alpine probably could be quicker than 8th and 12th. Alfa Romeo, not very quick at all, but I have news regarding Alfa Romeo that I'll get into when we get onto them in this build-up to qualifying. McLaren, though, what a disastrous session they had, and I'll get onto why they had an absolute disaster in practice 1 and how it's looking very bad going into this qualifying session. But, I mean, at the very top, not really a surprise, but for the rest of the field, it looks pretty competitive and pretty close. And it could allow for a decent grid for the sprint race. So, yeah, looking pretty good on that front. Now, let's get into the teams, and we'll start with Red Bull. And yeah, Red Bull are the favourites without a doubt for pole position, and unless Max Verstappen makes a mistake, Max Verstappen is going to be on pole position for the sprint race. There is absolutely no doubt about that whatsoever. The only question really is, what can Sergio Perez do? If he can get ahead of Charles Leclerc and make it a front row, that would be absolutely brilliant for the Red Bull team. Obviously, the home Grand Prix, but this track layout suits their car so well that it would be perfect for them, because if they were to get the front row here in qualifying, then they've got a pretty good chance of getting a 1-2 in the sprint, and then obviously that would lead to having a front row lockout for the Grand Prix on Sunday. So, yeah, looking very good for Red Bull. I think, like I said, they'll definitely be on pole position. It's just a matter of where does Sergio Perez end up in qualifying. I think Perez will definitely be in the top 4, say 4th place at the absolute worst. I don't think he'll be 5th or 6th. I think that would be way below where you would expect him to be. Perez has a decent record here at the Red Bull Ring, if you look at his results and performances here in the past. So, yeah, Perez should be pretty decent and probably in the top 3 on the grid if he can maximise what the Red Bull car has around this track. But yeah, if you're a Red Bull fan, expect it to be a very good session. On to Ferrari, and well, Charles Leclerc up in 2nd place. That's pretty much, I think, the best you're going to hope for Leclerc and Ferrari in qualifying. I just don't see. I mean, Leclerc, we know in qualifying this season has been tremendous, and around this track in the past in qualifying has been incredibly quick, but I just don't see how he can get close to Max, properly close to really fight for pole position. I just don't see how that's going to happen. As long as he gets on the front row, I think that would be a good result for him. For Carlos Sainz, though, hopefully he does improve on what he was doing in practice 1, which was P7. Really, for Sainz, he should be at worst in the top 5. If he can get in the top 4, that would be ideal, but it's going to be tough. The 2 Mercedes cars looking pretty quick, and Perez also looking pretty quick. So we'll see what happens there for Sainz. But yeah, Ferrari are not going to have a great day, and honestly, unless certain things go their way this weekend in terms of reliability over Red Bull, or maybe the weather helping them, I really don't see how Ferrari are going to come away from this weekend with a positive result, unfortunately for them. Mercedes next up. Good to see that they are right on the pace of, say, you'd have to say probably Ferrari. They're on, they're on the pace of them pretty much so far in practice 1. Can they keep that up in qualifying? I hope they can, because it would be fantastic for the weekend. Because Max Verstappen, like I said, unless something seriously goes wrong for him, Max Verstappen is going to win the Grand Prix this weekend. So when it comes to the fight from 2nd to 6th, it would be great if Mercedes were as quick as they were in practice 1, because it would allow for a pretty exciting fight between some very good drivers, you know, Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, Perez, Sainz, for those final 5 positions in the top 6. So yeah, I hope that Mercedes do have that speed. George Russell, like I said, very quick here. In the past, he has been for Williams. I think there was 1 year where he qualified, was it P12 or P11 in the Williams in qualifying, and the Williams car was pretty slow. So yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that Russell will be very quick in qualifying. And I think people may be surprised what I'm going to say, but there's, I think, enough evidence to back this up. But I think Russell is going to be ahead of Hamilton in qualifying. Lewis has not always been that great here at the Red Bull Ring, especially if you compare him to his teammates over the past Austrian Grand Prix or races at the Red Bull Ring. He's never been clearly ahead and been the main man for Mercedes around this track. So I think Russell, like I said, will be the main man for Mercedes in qualifying. Whether he is for the entire weekend, we'll have to see. But looking good for the Mercedes team. And as long as they can be third or fourth in qualifying at best, then that would be, I think, a good enough result given what I've seen so far. But McLaren, though, they won't be getting anywhere near that in this session. Obviously, last year, they were on the podium in one of the Austrian races and were on the front row with Lando Norris in the second Austrian race last year. But that is definitely not going to be happening this weekend. Not just because the car is slower and this track doesn't really suit this type of McLaren car, but their practice one session was a disaster. So Daniel Ricciardo, firstly, he ended up, P17. His rear wing, he had a problem with his rear wing. It was flapping quite a bit when he opened DRS, and I think it was actually broken, was his rear wing when he was opening the DRS, and that led to him having to get that fixed, and he couldn't really do a quick lap in practice one. And for Lando Norris, yeah, he had, despite fitting a completely new power unit, I believe, for this weekend, Lando Norris had an engine failure, I believe. So, yeah, disaster for the McLaren team. What can they do in qualifying? I'm not really sure what they can do. I think a good result for them, considering what happened in practice one, and considering how this car just doesn't suit this track layout, would probably be Norris sneaking into the top 10 with Ricardo, I don't know, just somewhere in Q2 between 11th and 15th. I think that would be probably a good result. This is going to be one of their worst Grand Prix of the season. We absolutely know this because, like I said, there is not really any part of the track that suits their car. All of the sectors here in Austria are not good for them. They don't really go well in any of the sectors. So, yeah, not going to be a good Grand Prix weekend. And given how practice one has gone, it's going to be probably a disaster for this team. Just wanted to ask you guys, though, in the live chat. Now, I've just quickly gone through the top teams, or the top 4 teams in Formula 1 in 2022. Let me know in the chat right now, for everyone watching, what are your sorry, let me start that again. What are your predictions for qualifying today? Who are you going for pole position, second, third, fourth, fifth? And if you want, give me your entire top 10, but at least give me your top 5, and I'll make sure to get to your comments in the chat once I'm done going through the teams. So, yeah, make sure to post out the live chat, and I'll get to them soon enough. But we'll get through the rest of the teams now, as we've got, about 15, 16 minutes to go until qualifying begins. Alpine, not bad. Alonso in 8th, Ocon 12th. Like I said earlier in this stream, I would have expected Alpine to be a bit quicker than that in practice one. A bit of a surprise that Haas F1 were ahead of them. Maybe that will translate itself into qualifying and Haas will genuinely have good pace. We'll have to see if that is the case in qualifying. But Alpine, I think, after the top 3 teams, should be the quickest team out of the midfield pack, because their car overall is, I think you'd have to say their car overall, not just around this track, but the last few races, is the better car compared to all of the others. You know, the McLaren, Aston Martin, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, all of those teams. It's a better overall all-round car, and just goes well at pretty much every track, does this Alpine car. And if they can perform how I thought they would for this weekend, then what they should be getting out of this session is a double Q3 appearance, and both cars in between, say, P7 and P9. If they can get a 4th row lockout for the sprint race, that would be very good. Of course, there are more points on offer for the sprint race. I think for the top 8 it is only. There are points in the sprint race. So if they can get a 4th row lockout Alpine, with McLaren possibly doing quite bad in this qualifying session coming up, Alpine could overtake McLaren this weekend, maybe even before the Grand Prix on Sunday. We'll have to see. But Alpine should have, unless Haas continue their incredible speed from practice 1, Alpine should have the best midfield package out of the rest of the midfield teams. We'll see whether that does actually happen. Next up, Alfa Romeo. Not that quick, I have to say, in practice 1. Both cars quite comfortably far away from the top 10. There has been some news, though. Valtteri Bottas will be taking a grid penalty for this weekend, and he will be starting Valtteri from the very back of the grid, I think for a completely new power unit that has been fitted to the Alfa Romeo. Of course, last weekend at Silverstone had, I think, an engine problem, so that's why they've had to do that. So all hopes rest on Zhou Guanyu, really, because it doesn't really matter what Valtteri Bottas does in this Grand Prix or this qualifying session or even the sprint race, because he's going to start the race on Sunday at the very back no matter what. So, yeah, all hopes pinned on Zhou Guanyu. As long as Zhou can get in the top 12, top 13, that'd be a decent result. We know Alfa Romeo have good race pace. And even in the sprint race, even though it'll be a short distance, they'll probably get to show that still in the sprint. So yeah, as long as they get a top 12, top 13 with Zhou, they should be okay for the rest of the weekend. Very surprising about Haas F1, 6th and 9th. Now both drivers have been historically very quick here. Kevin Magnussen has had a couple, I think, top 5s here at the past, whether it be the race or qualifying. So we know he's very quick here, and Mick Schumacher has had good history here, I think in F2 and Euro F3. So, yeah, the drivers, they do get on very well with this track, but I didn't expect them to be comfortably in the top 10 with both cars. I didn't think that would really be possible. But, yeah, if they can replicate that type of speed compared to Alpine, AlphaTauri, and the rest of the midfield in this session, it could really throw up something quite interesting for the rest of the weekend. Because, I mean, in Canada, we did have them up in the top 10, obviously. They were on the 3rd row of the grid for the Grand Prix on the Sunday. But we haven't really, for a while, had Haas consistently in the top 10 in, say, qualifying in a normal dry session. I think the last time we had that was at the Spanish Grand Prix in May. I think it was about 6 weeks ago, wasn't it? That Grand Prix in Barcelona. So it would be interesting to see if they were to get a double Q3 appearance, whether they could get a pretty strong result out of the weekend. We know, obviously, that Haas's race pace is not that good, and maybe we'll see that happen in the sprint race and the Grand Prix on Sunday, even if they get good starting positions. But yeah, I think with Haas, as long as they can try and replicate their pace from practice 1 to a certain extent, then they should be in a decent position for the sprint race, which of course is the main goal of this qualifying session. And we'll quickly whiz through the final teams. AlphaTauri, not a very good practice 1. Sonoda was in the top 10 though, which is good, but Gasly was quite low down. I don't quite know why, because Pierre normally is pretty quick around the Red Bull ring, but for some reason wasn't in practice 1. But I do expect it to be a lot quicker in qualifying, as long as AlphaTauri don't get it wrong for him. Which we have seen a few times this season, whether it be reliability or sending the cars out too late or, stuff like that. But yeah, AlphaTauri, they should be either on the cusp of the top 10 or just about sneaking into the top 10. Maybe not with both cars, but at least one of them. So look out for the AlphaTauri team in this qualifying session. For Aston Martin, like I said earlier, 11th and 13th is pretty much, that's where they were in practice 1. That's pretty much where I would expect them to be in this in this qualifying session, if that's where they end up. They've not got still Aston Martin. I mean, I know Sebastian Vettel has had a few Q3 appearances this season, but they've still not really got that quick of a car over a single lap. It's more of a race car, this Aston Martin, which we've seen from this Silverstone-based team for a very, very long time. So, yeah, if they can just get both cars towards the front end of the cars eliminated in Q2, then that would be good enough, I think, for the Aston Martin team. And then from there, if they were to get like an 11th or 12th or 11th and 13th, they are probably going to score a few points then in maybe the sprint race, but definitely the Grand Prix on Sunday, if they can get themselves lined up in good positions. And finally, it is Williams. Alex Alban was 15th in practice 1. Obviously, this new Williams car, I think Alban is still running the new updated one, and hopefully he is, so he can be possibly in Q2 in this session coming up. And yeah, as long as Alban gets into Q2, then I think that would be a good result for the Williams team. We'll see if Nicholas Latifi can keep up the heroics from last weekend, but most likely he will not be able to. But guys, let me know right now in the live chat for everyone watching, who do you think, like I said, is going to end up finishing on pole position, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, and give me your top 10 if you want qualifying predictions here for the 2022 Austrian Grand Prix. I'm very interested to hear what you guys have to say, so make sure to post that in the live chat, and I'll make sure to read out a few of those comments or predictions before we get into qualifying itself in about 7-8 minutes time from now. Just want to say, for everyone watching, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because I'll be live for quite a while tomorrow and on Sunday. These times, by the way, that I'm going to state are all UK time for when I'm, streaming, in terms of when I'm starting, when I'm finishing. So at 12:30 p.m. UK time tomorrow, I'll be going live for the sprint race preview, and that sprint race preview will be lasting until 3 p.m. And then from 3 till 4 p.m. will be the sprint race watch-along, and then from 4 till 4:30 p.m. will be the sprint race reaction. And then on Sunday at 12 p.m. UK time, I'll be live until 1:30 with the race preview. Then from 1:30 till 4 for the race watch-along, and then from 4 till 5:30 p.m. UK time for the race reaction. So make sure, if you're new to the channel, to join us for that by subscribing. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. For everyone watching, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. And don't forget as well to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. But let me quickly, before I come to any predictions in the chat, let me quickly get into some final stats going into this qualifying session. So, Max Verstappen, he has taken 2 pole positions in Austria. Both were from last year in 2021, where we know he dominated both of those weekends. Red Bull also have 2 pole positions at their home race. And yeah, obviously those 2 pole positions were Max Verstappen's 2 pole positions from 2021. So Red Bull looking to make it 3 in a row in qualifying today. The Ferrari Charles Leclerc has only 1 pole position at F1, or in F1 at the Red Bull Ring. Ferrari's last pole in Austria was Leclerc's in 2019. A very good lap it was that day from the Monegasque. And Ferrari, this is a very interesting stat that I want to read out that I discovered last night when making it. Ferrari have 7 pole positions in the first 10 races. That's the most they have had in the first 10 races of a season since 2004. And of course, in 2004, we know that Ferrari absolutely dominated and obliterated everyone that season. And Michael Schumacher, I think that season, won 13 races. Shows you how good they've been in qualifying this year, but also shows you how poor they've been on race day and how poor of a team they are in executing results. But when it comes to qualifying in 2022, Ferrari are the team for that. For Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton has taken pole position 3 times in Austria since 2014, and Mercedes have taken pole position in Austria 6 times since 2014. The other 3 times other than Hamilton's, were I think the other 3 times were Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes in 2017, 18, and 2020 as well. This is also the Mercedes team's longest stretch without a pole position since 2012. Remember, their last pole position for the team and for Lewis Hamilton was at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in 2021, which was, 12 races ago, 11 races ago? And yeah, they've not had a stretch like that without pole position, like I said, since 2012, 10 years ago. For McLaren and Lando Norris has qualified inside the top 6 of every F1 race he's competed in at the Red Bull Ring. And just to let you guys know, if you were wondering, even though this is not really going to matter, this stat that much in qualifying, McLaren's last pole position in Austria was in 2000 with Mika Hakkinen. That weekend, they got a 1-2 in the race and qualifying as well. And finally, let's go on to Valtteri Bottas, someone you will have to watch out for if he does decide in this session to actually do qualifying properly, which I'm not sure he will, but we'll see if he does. But if he does, Valtteri Bottas, you've got to look out for him because he's taken pole position 3 times at the Red Bull Ring. And when he was Lewis Hamilton's teammate, he out-qualified Lewis 4 times out of 7 races in Austria. That's very impressive. Yes, this is not one of Lewis's best tracks, but to out-qualify Lewis 4 times over the space of, 4 or 5 years at the Red Bull Ring and 4 times out of 7 races in Austria is a very, very impressive record. So, Valtteri Bottas, if he does actually decide to do qualifying, watch out for him. And quickly and finally, we'll go on to the championship standings. Reminder of what they are. Max Verstappen comfortably leading on 181 points. Sergio Perez second, and Perez 34 points behind. Charles Leclerc third, and Leclerc 43 points behind Ferrari. Carlos Sainz is now 4th, with Russell 5th, and then Lewis Hamilton 6th. Norris 7th, Bottas 8th, Ocon 9th, and Fernando Alonso in P10. And then the constructor standings, it's Red Bull still comfortably leading by 63 points, with Ferrari 2nd, Mercedes 3rd, McLaren 4th, Alpine catching up to McLaren in 5th, and then Alfa Romeo 6th, AlphaTauri 7th, Haas now 8th, Aston Martin 9th, and Williams in P10. So, and let me get rid of all this stuff and get all of the graphics ready for you guys, as qualifying is about to begin in, I think, about 90 seconds time. So get ready, guys, for the start of qualifying. By the way, they just showed on the screen how many laps the sprint race will be tomorrow. If you're wondering how many laps it'll be tomorrow, it'll be 24 laps, which is a decent amount. Just trying to remember how many minutes are there in Q1. I'll sync the timer up, though, once we're a minute in at 17 minutes. And I'll move on to these pictures. Unfortunately, there wasn't that many pictures about for me to put in a slideshow. So the pictures you'll be seeing in the slideshow, the pictures you've already seen in this stream, unfortunately. But don't worry, tomorrow I will have, for the rest of the weekend, a good slideshow of pictures that you haven't already seen. And I'll just quickly get out my dotted line to illustrate where the cutoff zone is. Let me just quickly do that, and there you go. So anyone below that dotted line at the end of Q1 will be out of the session, and we'll start the race in those positions. We'll see what happens there. Tracy Woodbridge, for their prediction, says Max, Carlos, Sergio, Chop, and Valtteri. No idea what that means. Chop. KH says Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, Sainz, K-Mag, Alonso, Norris, Sonoda. Paul James Squibbs asks, why does there seem to be such a big difference in the pace of the McLaren cars? Is it all due to the drivers, or is it due to something different between the setups and specs on the actual cars? If you're talking about the practice one results, it's because Lando Norris had a problem with his car. It's not because, it's not because Daniel was that much quicker. But if you're talking about like why is Lando so much quicker normally than Ricardo, which I think is probably what you are talking about. I think the reason is, one, Norris is more comfortable with the McLaren team than Ricardo is, and that's always going to be the case because Norris is, he's been with McLaren for such a long time. Probably has had the car designed or set up more in his favour than Ricardo in certain periods, as they've been McLaren teammates. By the way, the session has begun. Like I said, I'll sync the timer up and get it on screen at the 17-minute mark. I do think to a certain extent the car has been set up more so in Lando's favour, which is fine because Lando has been quicker and better than Ricardo, so he does deserve that treatment. But also, I think Lando has improved a lot and is better than Daniel Ricciardo. Ricardo is still a very good driver. I just think, given how Norris has performed in the last couple of years, he's making Ricardo look a lot worse than he actually is, as we've got plenty of cars now out on track. And we're looking currently at Sergio Perez coming on the track as Verstappen is still in the pits. And there you go. So the timer now on your screen, just under 17 minutes to go in Q1. By the way, Prank, I'll read out your prediction quickly. Verstappen, Perez, Leclair for quali, and Max goes Supermax for max points. Yeah, given that it's a sprint race this weekend, I think Max will be pulling out a very good gap to the people behind him in the championship, especially Charles Leclerc. The gap currently, like I showed a minute ago, at 43 points between Max and Leclerc. That's probably going to go up to, if Max wins the sprint race and the race itself on Sunday, that's probably going to go up to 50 plus points. Let's say 52, 53 points. Weather looking pretty good. Very good, actually. It's a clear day at the Red Bull Ring as Charles Leclerc begins his first lap in qualifying. Let's see what kind of pace he has. His lap time in practice one was a 1 minute 6.3, I think it was. We'll see what he can do in this first run, as the laps so far pretty good. Slight hesitation on the exit of the corner, as we've got plenty of people starting their laps as the Verstappen flares continue to go off trackside. Obviously a massive contingent of Max Verstappen fans here at the Red Bull Ring. As Leclerc, decent run there through turn 6. And Ferrari car looking good, but I don't think it'll be as quick, unfortunately, as the Red Bull. Once Red Bull get their laps in, as Leclerc will go quickest, and he does a 1:06.7. Not the greatest lap there. And Lando Norris goes second for McLaren. Let me just update that picture quickly. There you go. And and Carlos Sainz is now up to first, 0.4 of a second quicker. So Leclerc definitely not that quick on that lap, as I suspected. Perez has gone third, and then it's Norris fourth. Alban is now fifth for Williams, with Ricardo in P6, as Carlos Sainz has lost his lap time. That's something we saw a lot. If you watched F2 earlier, that's something we saw a lot in that session. People losing their lap times due to track limit violations, which happens quite a lot here at the Red Bull Ring. So it is Leclerc, Perez, Norris, Alban, and then it is Ricardo 5th, Sonoda 6th, and then Sebastian Vettel is in P7 with Gasly in 8th, and then the last man to do a time is Nicholas Latifi. So F1 below, F1 from 10th place down has, as here's a replay of Sainz, and yeah, he did go over the white line. It was close and probably didn't gain a massive amount of time from doing it, but it is a clear violation. But yeah, F1 from 10th place down on my order on my screen has not done a lap time as of yet. As we're currently looking at the Alpine of, I think, Esteban Ocon, it is, coming through the 2 final corners, and he keeps it just about within bounds, comes to the line, and goes 5th. Where does Fernando Alonso go behind him? Much quicker, and goes quickest. Just Fernando Alonso. So Alonso into 1st position there in the Alpine. As Kevin Magnussen now goes half a tenth quicker than Fernando Alonso and goes quickest himself. So Magnussen up to 1st. Mick Schumacher went quickest just then, but Charles Leclerc returns to the top. But let me just quickly update that Mick Schumacher is in 2nd. And there you go. So it's Leclerc, Schumacher, Magnussen, Alonso, Perez, Norris, Alban, your top 7. And then you've got Esteban Ocon in 8th place as Carlos Sainz does another lap. Hopefully this is a legal one, and Carlos goes 2nd for Ferrari. So Sainz up to P2, and he's about 0.2 of a second slower than Leclerc. And no lap at the moment from Max Verstappen, but Verstappen is on an outlap. So Alban is 8th, Ocon 9th, and then you've got now Sonoda 10th, Gasly 11th, and then Ricardo, Vettel, and Zhou in 14th. And then the rest of the order, from Latifi down, have not done a proper lap time as of yet. As Max Verstappen now begins his first flying lap in qualifying. Let's see what Verstappen can do. As Leclerc currently quickest on a 1minute 6.2 exactly. And he's already half a tenth quicker than Charles Leclerc in the first sector. Surprisingly does not do a quickest first sector. But still plenty of time to do a purple sector. As Lance Stroll up to 8th. Lewis Hamilton now goes 9th in the Mercedes. As Russell goes all the way up to 4th place with his first lap. As Max Verstappen does not do a purple middle sector either, which is interesting. As Verstappen comes through the final 2 corners, Sergio Perez now goes quickest for Red Bull, half a tenth quicker than Leclerc. Verstappen, though, despite not doing a purple sector in any of the sectors, goes quickest by now half a tenth over Perez. So it is a Red Bull 1-2 here in Q1. And there you go. So Verstappen, Perez, Alonso is now 3rd for Alpine. What a season, by the way, Alonso is having, especially in these last few races. Obviously, finishing the top 5 at the British Grand Prix. And if Alpine do get 4th in the championship, it will be because of him. And honestly, if there is a race this season where we get some craziness happening that allows a team outside of the top 3 to win. Wouldn't be surprised at all if Fernando Alonso won a Grand Prix this season. Remember, Alonso has not won a race in 9 years. But, yeah, if the circumstances present themselves for that, to be broken, that drought, then I'm sure he can do it, as Max Verstappen has had his time deleted. So Verstappen all the way back down now, as Magnussen is on a new improved lap. So it's now Perez, Alonso, Leclair, Sainz, and then Schumacher 5th. Ocon is now 6th for the Alpine team, as Lewis Hamilton has done a purple first sector, as Kevin Magnussen goes 4th for the Haas team. Haas looking pretty quick here, as Lewis Hamilton does a personal best middle sector, as Russell goes up to P4 now in the Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton, though, comes to the line and goes quickest by 0.06 of a second to a 1 minute 6.0. Lewis Hamilton up to first, and definitely Hamilton looking a lot better in these last couple races than he was earlier in the season. But, yeah, you got Ocon 9th, and Valtteri Bottas is now in P10, as Zhou Guanyu now goes up to 11th position in the Alfa Romeo. Max Verstappen, I think, is on another lap, possibly. We'll have to see what he's actually doing, as Kevin Magnussen has had his time deleted. So Magnussen goes back down to 9th place and is pitted. Alex Alban comes to the line on fresh, soft tyres and goes up to 8th place, does Alban. Very good lap by the Thai driver, as Ricardo currently 17th, doing enough at the moment to get into the next part of qualifying, as Lando Norris is 13th, and then you've got Latifi, who's just gone 14th for Williams, and then Alban's had his time deleted. This is very frustrating for me, who's trying to, sort out the order. But Alban is down to 15th, and Daniel Ricciardo has now gone up to 11th place. So it's Latifi 14th, and then you've got Lance Stroll 15th, and then in the drop zone, well, it was Sonoda, but he's now gone up to P11. Oh no, has he gone P11? Well, Gasly's gone up to 10th now. As I can tell you, Max Verstappen is on a new lap, and he's done a purple first sector, and he is, going to be quite comfortably going quickest, I think, with this lap. The Gasly up to P10, and in the drop zone, then at the moment, with 5 minutes to go, I'll wait till Max Verstappen completes this lap, as Verstappen goes quickest by 0.2 of a second, and hopefully that will be a legal lap there for Max Verstappen. So Verstappen is up to first, and Sainz actually goes quicker now, and so does Leclair. So it's now Ferrari 1-2, and Leclair now 0.4 of a second quicker than Max Verstappen. But in the drop zone, guys, at the moment, Lando Norris, Nicholas Latifi, Lance Stroll, Alex Alban, and Sebastian Vettel. Aston Martin, where is your single lap pace? I know it's not their strongest thing, single lap pace, but yeah, 18th and 20th. That would be matching what they did at Silverstone. As Sebastian Vettel, currently on a new lap, he's 1/10 of a second up on Zhou Guanyu, who's on the cusp in 15th place, but needs a bit more pace than that, I think, if he wants to get into Q2. as Vettel flies through the final two corners, looking very nice and settled, and comes to the line, and Vettel only goes 17th. Not looking good, as Lando Norris goes all the way up to P8. Fantastic lap by Lando. Hopefully gets to keep it. So in the drop zone now, Zhou, Vettel, Latifi, Stroll, and Alban. How is Latifi quicker than Alban in a slower Williams car? Makes no sense whatsoever, still. But, yeah, with 3 minutes to go in Q1, we've got probably at risk, I would say, of getting knocked out. Probably Norris, Schumacher, Ocon, Magnussen, Gasly, Bottas, Sonoda, Ricardo. You'd have to say the ones at risk. I think the top 7 will be okay, but they'll want to do another lap just to make sure, because obviously we've not had much running this weekend, and the track will ramp up in grip and improve a lot in pace. And here's a replay of why Alban had a lap time deletion, and yeah, he did run slightly over the white line. And even though, yes, it is a very small infraction, that will help his lap time, because if there was a wall there and he wasn't able to do what he just did, then he wouldn't have been able to take that corner as quickly, meaning he wouldn't have been as quick as he was on that lap where he exceeded track limits. So it is the fair thing to do there, as Lance Stroll goes 15th for Aston Martin on a new lap. But I do not think that'll be enough, because I think the cars below him will go a bit quicker than that. Not looking good for Aston Martin whatsoever. As, yeah, Stroll, I think, is now doing a cool-down lap before he does one more lap on those tyres. I am interested to see, though, what Verstappen can do, possibly. I don't think he's coming out again. No, he is not, and neither is the two Ferrari cars. I'm interested to see what Verstappen can do in terms of lap time in Q2, because the time Verstappen has done here in Q1 is about what he did. I think it's quicker than what he did in practice 1, but it's not that much quicker, when Ferrari are almost a second quicker than they were in practice 2. So you'd imagine that Max Verstappen has a lot more pace in that Red Bull than Leclair and Sainz have in their Ferrari cars. As here is Zhou Guan you were looking at on board. Coming up to the first sector time beam. And he is 0.06 of a second quicker than Stroll. Oh, loses a rear end though slightly on the exit of turn 3. That will cost him probably 0.1 of a second. And that could be the difference as we enter the final 40 seconds here in Q1. Soon to be final half a minute. And he comes now, Zhou, into turn 6. Very nice through there, hitting the apex beautifully. 0.1 of a second up he is on Stroll. Very nice turn 7 there. So good second half of the lap for Zhou, as there's a slow car ahead. And he will get a good slipstream to the line, and Zhou Guan Yu comes to the line, only goes for 17th as what do you call it? Alex Alban has gone all the way up to P11 in the Williams, as now Valtteri Bottas goes up to 11th, as the checkered flag is now out. And then Sonoda is now up to 12th place. Ocon is now down to 13th. That's because I don't actually know what that is. I think someone... Oh, no, Kevin Magnussen has improved up to 9th, and Ocon has dropped down. Alban down to 14th. Now Gasly on the cusp. Ricardo knocked out in 16th place. That is very disappointing. Lance Stroll knocked out in 17th. Zhou is out in 18th. Vettel goes only P17, meaning that at the end of Q1, both Aston Martins are out in 17th and 18th place. For the third race in a row, Aston Martin having a horror show in qualifying. We know they've got good race pace, but their qualifying pace is very, very poor. So, Through to Q2, Leclair, Sainz, Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez, Alonso, Russell, Norris, Magnussen, Schumacher, Bottas, Sonoda, Ocon, Alban, Gasly. Great job, by the way, by Alex Alban to get into Q2. And knocked out in Q1, Daniel Ricciardo, Sebastian Vettel, Lance Stroll, Zhou Guanyu, and Nicholas Latifi. Actually, hold on. Let me redo that again, because Vettel has had his time deleted. So, yeah, knocked out in Q1, Ricardo, Stroll, Zhou Guanyu, Latifi, and Sebastian Vettel will start the sprint race last. What a disaster for Aston Martin. And that is, well, you can overtake here, so they will be able to make their way through the field if they've got good race pace, but that is pretty pathetic from the Aston Martin team, as Q2, guys, will be beginning in 2 or 3 minutes from now. And, yeah, should be interesting to see who gets knocked out in Q2. I'm very interested to see what Alex Albon and the Williams can do, whether he can get a top 10. That'd be amazing if he could do that. You know, second race in a row that would be for Williams in Q3. But if he could get 12th or 13th here in Q2, that would be very, very good for the Williams team. Dane asks, what happened to Danny Rick? Just too slow. Just too slow. Obviously, we know from the past that Ricardo has never been quick here at the Red Bull Ring. The only good weekend he had here was in 2017, where he finished on the podium. Every other weekend has been pretty poor for him, whether it be just not quick enough or reliability problems. He's never really had a great time around this track. So, yeah. That's why Ricardo is out in Q1. Lando Norris, though, very nicely in the top 10. If he could get into the top 10, Norris, that would be brilliant for McLaren, because they are not doing too well at all at the moment. And just to let you guys know, in regards to Lando Norris, after changing power units for this weekend, McLaren has gone back to Norris's old power unit after their practice 1 issues. And trying to see if I can find anything else in regards to wow, just saw something there that's very surprising in regards to the tennis. Yeah, just trying to see if there's any news I can bring you. No, there is not. But yeah, Q2 will be underway in a minute or so. And they said to Sebastian, who was obviously last, I'm afraid we're out, Sebastian. Sebastian, don't know what his message was there exactly, but he did swear, which is no surprise, because obviously he does not race to start races in last. Dane says, can't blame Zhou Guanyu first time being here. I don't think that's true. I think he has raced here 2 or 3 times in the past for Formula 2 as Zhou. But we're all getting set now for Q2. That's the Verstappen army. Looking forward to seeing what Max can throw up in Q2. And like I said, a few minutes before the end of Q1, Ferrari about a second quicker there in Q1 than they were in practice 1. Max only a tenth or 2 quicker. So it will be interesting to see how much extra pace Red Bull and Max Verstappen have in Q2 and Q3. And here is why Lance Stroll's time was deleted. And yeah, he didn't really go any quicker because of that. He just ran wide. And for Vettel, I guess he did the same at turn 1. Well, Vettel would have actually gained from that, but yeah, not great there. For Aston Martin, but we're currently looking at a Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Looking at his screens, and he's obviously in the pits. Session, I don't think, has started yet. Now we're looking at Fernando Alonso, who obviously ended up in the top 6 there in Q1. But we are moments away from the session getting underway. And the session has started. I'll get the timer on screen at the 14-minute mark. I just wanted to say, though, 2 things, which I don't think I talked about in my build-up to qualifying, but maybe I'll go more into it tomorrow, but I will let you guys the news quickly. So the budget cap has been increased by 3% after a meeting between the teams and the FIA and Liberty here in Austria due to rising inflation. So, yeah, they have increased the budget cap, which is sad because that does affect the teams that, you know, got it right in terms of budgeting for the year. And also, the technical directive about the floors has been delayed by a month, and they won't be coming in until the Belgian Grand Prix, which obviously is the first Grand Prix after the summer break on the final weekend of August. So just letting you guys know about that. And we've got 14 minutes to go in Q2, and I will get into that a slight bit more in my build-up to the sprint race tomorrow. As we're looking at Ferrari and Red Bull already out on track, and Max Verstappen already backing up so we can get a good first run here in Q2. Just remembered that I need to get my second dotted line ready. Illustrate where the cutoff zone is. So let me just quickly do that for you guys. And let me try and get it right. And yeah, there you go. So anyone in between those 2 dotted lines at the end of Q2, if you're new to Formula 1, will be out and will not be able to compete in the shootout. The top 10 of Q3, as we're looking at a visor cam on the TV broadcast of Lando Norris, who's just completed the first sector, losing the rear end quite a bit on the exit of turn 3. As Charles Leclerc has done a purple first sector. What does Verstappen do? Verstappen now does a purple first sector. As Norris, don't know what happened there for Norris, but he's now backed off. I didn't see because I wasn't looking at the screen as to why he backed off there. Let me just raise this thing quickly. And now we are looking at Charles Leclerc, who's about to complete his first lap here in Q2, and he goes quickest with a 1:05.7, which is not that quick. He was a lot quicker than that in Q1. Verstappen goes 0.2 of a second quicker. Carlos Sainz is 3rd, and Perez is 4th for Red Bull. George Russell goes 2nd with a purple first and final sector, and Lewis Hamilton goes quickest by 0.03 of a second. So good to see from Mercedes. And Hamilton a couple tenths of a second quicker than Russell as well. So it's Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc, Sainz, Perez. And then Ocon is in 7th with Gasly up in P8. Norris must have made a mistake that I didn't see on his lap. Unless that moment on the exit of turn 3 was the reason why. And yeah, that's why I didn't actually see that, because I was looking at my my computer screen. But Lando Norris locked up heavily going into turn 4 on the inside front, and also Sergio Perez did as well, I think, on his flying lap. So Perez could go quite a bit quicker. And we're now looking at Alex Alban, who is on an improved lap here. Or his first lap, actually. Not an improved lap. Let's see what his middle sector time is looking like, though. It is very good. It's just within half a second of Lewis Hamilton after 2 sectors. So this could put Alban up in 7th or 8th place. As he comes to the final 2 corners now, very quick. And he was very close there on the exit of the final corner for track limits. And he does go P7, but we'll see if he can keep that lap. As Ocon does another lap and goes 6th for Alpine. And here is Lando Norris. Replay of him into turn 1, misses the apex, and then has to go straight on and rejoin on the escape road. So having a very scruffy session is Norris, which you don't normally see from him, as Lewis Hamilton, I think, has just done a purple first sector, as the Haas there of Kevin Magnussen, I think now, has started his first flying lap in Q2. Let's see what he can do. The 2 Haases, very quick in Q1, as Lewis Hamilton improves his lap time by another few hundredths of a second, and he's now about a 10th of a second quicker than Max Verstappen in P1. So very impressive from Mercedes here. And Magnussen, let's see what he can do for the middle sector in comparison to Lewis Hamilton, who is currently quickest. And Magnussen, not a bad middle sector. This should put Magnussen up to P7, maybe P6 here for the Haas driver. Also Mick Schumacher on a lap, as Kevin Magnussen comes through the final corner. Very good middle sector for Mick Schumacher, by the way. And Magnussen comes to the line and does go 6th. Very quick pace from the Haas team. Here's Mick Schumacher into the final 2 corners. And very good run that is through the final 2 corners. Where did he go? He goes 6th. Great job there by Mick. A Q3 appearance would be great for him. As Bottas, not a great middle sector for him. As Alonso has just done he's just completed the first sector on his first timed run. We've only got, I think, Alonso, Bottas, and Sonoda yet to do a proper time, and also Lando Norris. As Valtteri Bottas only goes P10. That's not going to be good enough to get him to Q3. Is Fernando Alonso. Good speed through turn 6. And he's looking pretty good here to get into the top 10. He's 0.2 of a second quicker than Bottas in the after the first 2 sectors. As Ocon, Perez drops down to P10. I think had his lap time deleted there. Alonso comes to the line and goes into 6th place. Alonso comfortably in the top 10. As we're now looking at Yuki Sonoda, who has not done a lap time as of yet, but this is quite a slow lap so far for Sonoda. 0.8 of a second off, I think, after the first 2 sectors, and that looked as though he went over the track limits there. Sonoda, only 13th on that lap. Gasly goes back into 13th position. So, with 6 minutes or just under 6 minutes to go in Q2. The people getting into the top 10 at the moment are Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell, Leclair, Sainz, Alonso, Schumacher, Magnussen, Ocon and Bottas. In the drop zone at the moment, Sergio Perez, Alex Alban, Pierre Gasly, Yuki Sonoda and Lando Norris. Some very good drivers missing the cut at the minute. Dane asks, hey Chaz, do you think Aston Martin should return to the old B-spec where they used at Spain? Not yet. Not yet. We'll see. You know, let's give it. I mean, we've only got 2 races after this one until the summer break. So let's see how they do until the summer break, and then we'll see whether they should go back to that B-spec car or the car they brought to the Spanish Grand Prix. As just trying to look at Twitter to see if there's any news at the moment I can bring you guys, but no, not at the moment. As we're looking at Lando Norris, who is obviously on an out lap, he's had 2 attempts at a quick lap, and he's failed on both of them to actually get a good lap in. As Norris, in the quite beautiful looking McLaren, but not very quick McLaren, begins one of his final runs in Q2. Is it one of his final runs here in qualifying? Let's see. As Norris exits turn 1. Pretty good run there. He'll get a slight slipstream from a car ahead, I think, on this lap. And he's 0.08 of a second quicker than Bottas after the first sector. So this is a good run so far for Norris. Now into turn 4, where he locked up heavily earlier on, but he didn't do too great on that corner this time. I mean, better than the last time, but still went slight bit wide. The McLaren not handling that well, and very wide through turn 6. He'll lose his lap time for that, surely. He was way over the track limits. So Charles Leclerc goes quickest for Ferrari by 0.2 of a second. As Norris now into the final 2 corners. Not sure if Lando is going to get into the top 10 here. Comes to the line. And no, he does not. He only goes 13th. Not looking good at all if you are a McLaren fan. Esteban Ocon currently in 9th. Can he improve on that position? Very good run through the final 2 corners. Surely he will. And he does. He goes up to 6th place. Very nice there for Alpine. 6th and 7th it is currently for the Alpine team. Fernando Alonso is still in the pits for some reason. Oh, no, he's on an out lap, thankfully. Because I was going to say, if he stays in the pits, he will get knocked out. But everyone now on an out lap, except for Ocon, Sainz, Leclerc, who have just done a new lap. And Carlos Sainz is up to 4th now. And Lando Norris will be doing a cool-down lap now, so he can build up to a final lap, as Norris had his time deleted. Well, we saw that, didn't we? At at turn 6, turn 7, whatever call you want to call it, where he put a wheel or a couple wheels into the gravel. And here's also replaying to turn 4, where, yeah, he did lock up slightly, and I thought he did miss the apex slightly of that corner, and then ran too wide in turn 6. And car just understeering wide. Wouldn't comply with what Lando was asking of the car. As here is Alex Alban, who is on a flying lap. He's currently P12, can he get into Q3 with this new updated Williams? That would be fantastic for the Williams team. As he comes into turn 6 now. He's done a personal best first sector. And he is 0.2 up on Bottas, who is currently in the top 10. This is a very good lap for Alban. Hopefully has a good final sector. And he might have been over the track limits there at the penultimate corner, I'm not sure. But Alban comes to the line and goes P10. Also might have been distracted by a couple cars about to start their lap, as Sergio Perez, who is now down to P12, is on a flying lap, and he's done a improved first sector as Kevin Magnussen goes 6th for the Haas team. Perez this time does not lock up into turn 4. Hopefully doesn't get a track or a lap time deletion for track limits. And he is up on the time he needs to be in the top 10, but not by much, as Pierre Gasly now goes 10th, as the checkered flag is now out. Perez now down to 13th. Can he get into the top 10? As Max Verstappen goes 2nd, Sergio Perez goes 6th. So Perez comfortably into the top 10. Verstappen up to 2nd. And Lando Norris, by the way, is pitted, so Norris will start 15th, Ricardo 16th. What a disaster for McLaren, who were on the front row here a year ago. Alonso improves his lap time. Does he? No, he doesn't. But he stays in 9th place. And I think Gasly and Alban will not be improving their laps, as Alonso now cools down once the session is over. So I believe that is it for Q2. And into Q3, guys, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, George Russell, Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, Esteban Ocon, Fernando Alonso, and Mick Schumacher. A double Q3 for Haas there. What a result for them. Knocked out, though, in Q2, Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, Valtteri Bottas, Yuki Sonoda, and Lando Norris. Great job, by the way, by Alban to get P12. And if there is a couple little accidents in the sprint race tomorrow, he could start the race in the top 10. And Sonoda, that's why he ended up in 14th on the exit of turn 1, almost spun. Big snap of oversteer for him. But yeah, great job there by Alex Albon to get into P12. And it does show that Williams, there is hope for this season and going forward, because that car is definitely much quicker than it was before. There is no doubt about it. We didn't quite see it at Silverstone because we obviously had a wet qualifying and Albon was knocked out the first corner of the British Grand Prix. But now in dry conditions in a representative session, we're seeing that Williams is definitely pretty quick. But Q3, guys, will be underway in 2 or 3 minutes' time. And it will be a 12-minute session. And I'll sync up the timer at the 11-minute mark. Just want to read out this super chat. Thank you, Silverback Orangutan, for the $1.99 super chat. Says, breaking news, Hulkenberg to replace Boris Johnson. Well, I would certainly be a lot happier with Hulkenberg than Boris, but yeah, that would be, incredible. Obviously, my part of the world, the UK, has been an absolute joke, not just in the last day or so, but in the last 2 years, really. We are one of the biggest jokes in the world, no doubt about it, and hopefully, from a political standpoint, we become more of a sane place to live rather than the insanity we've had for the last, not just 2 years, 5 years, really. Anyway, enough of politics and on to Formula 1. Let me know, guys, who do you think is getting pole position? Because, I mean, I obviously came into this session, said I thought it would be Max Verstappen getting pole position quite comfortably. But Charles Leclerc has topped both Q1 and Q2. So, can he get pole position? It would certainly make the weekend a lot more interesting if Ferrari got pole position for the sprint. Because if Verstappen gets pole, I think it's going to be most likely Verstappen dominating. I'm just seeing, though, Chris Medland has tweeted that apparently McLaren had confidence this weekend that this track would suit their car. Are they stupid? Of course it's not going to suit their car. They've got no straight line speed. They've got to be idiots, McLaren. They have to be. I mean, last year, obviously, they had a car that was a lot better, but the characteristics of their car suited this track a lot better than it does, this year's McLaren car. That's why they won the Italian Grand Prix, of course, because their straight line speed was probably the best out of any team last year, and they did very well at high-speed racetracks like the Red Bull Ring. Obviously, this time last year, Norris was on the front row at the Red Bull Ring and finished third. So, yeah, don't quite understand why McLaren thought this would suit their car. I mean, Paul Ricard and the Hungaroring probably will suit their car a lot more, but yeah, I don't quite understand that. As Q3, guys, should be underway in a minute or so. Just having a look at Twitter quickly to see if there's any news, and I can't see anything at the moment. Yeah, guys, let me know. Who do you think is going to get pole position? And as well, definitely we have to think about it. Could Mercedes get pole position? Like I said earlier in the build-up to this session, this is the longest stretch they've had without a pole position since 2012. The last pole position was at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix last year, the penultimate race of 2021. Could they get pole position? It would be very interesting if they did. Let me look at the chat quickly. Silverback says praying Ferrari 1-2. Butterfly Blue Shorts says Verstappen for pole. Merck to crash out to Ferrari second and third. Elaine says I'm thinking Hamilton for pole. Why not? Alinda is praying for Hamilton on pole. Prank says still Max. I'm still gonna go with Max, but I think Mercedes are definitely in the fight. So we'll see what happens and see whether they can get pole position. It would definitely make things very exciting going forward, not just for this weekend, but for the rest of the season, if they could be, fighting for pole and victory this weekend. Because really, I thought this track would be decent for them, but I didn't think it would be like this good for them, as we're seeing so far. Clearly, the upgrades Mercedes have, put on this car have worked. They've worked quite a bit. They're about half a second quicker and closer to the front of the field than they were before the British Grand Prix. So, great to see there at Mercedes, and hopefully we'll be now fighting with Ferrari and Red Bull for the rest of the season, because that's what we've been missing in 2022, a three-way fight for the top 6 positions. And Q3 underway, guys, in a few moments' time. All the cars still in their pit garages. And yeah, we'll see who, in the first runs of Q3, can get to provisional pole and really mix things up. As Mercedes there, looking pretty happy, pretty confident of what's going to happen here. And they're now removing the screen and about to remove the tyre blankets. The great thing for Mercedes is, because obviously for so many years, even though they've been so great, they've always had that pressure of, having to win pretty much every Grand Prix. It says turn 8 incident involving Perez noted for track limits. Does that mean he could get knocked or pushed back down to outside the top 10? With the results, I'm not sure. what was I going to say? Yeah, Mercedes for so many years, they've always been expected every Grand Prix to come to and win. And, win the championship. If they've now got a car that can legitimately fight for poles and victories, the great thing for them is they're a great team, but they won't have any pressure. I mean, if they get one victory, that'll probably be good enough for them this season, considering how bad they were at the start of the year. As the session has begun, I'll sync the timer up in about 15 seconds time, as we've got a few cars now on track. And they've now hidden the timer, which is annoying. Yeah. So Perez, what's happened is Sergio Perez on his final lap in Q2 has gone beyond the track limits at turn 8, but they've not noted it or noticed it until Q3 has begun, which is annoying because that means Gasly could have been in Q3 here. But that means he will be able to do Q3, Perez, as I'll sync the timer for the 9-minute mark, because annoyingly they hit it at the exact wrong time. But nobody at the moment is on a flying lap. They're all on their out laps. As I think Esteban Ocon has just started his first flying lap of Q3. So has Russell, and now so has Lewis Hamilton. Can he get yet another pole position in his Formula 1 career? Not had one for a while, and it must have felt like he's not had one in years, considering how many times he got pole between 2012 and 2021. As Lewis does a 16.5 for the first sector. Pretty good first sector for the Mercedes there. And now Hamilton comes down into turn 4. And I think he has backed off. He has. So maybe he's just warming up his tyres. We have seen with Mercedes, they do have problems warming their tyres up, which helps in the race because it keeps their tyres nice and cool. But the qualifying means they can't get enough heat into them to get the best performance out of them sometimes. As Charles Leclerc does a good first or middle sector there. In the Ferrari, as Esteban Ocon goes quickest for Alpine. Russell now goes quickest for Mercedes. And Charles Leclerc now comes to the line and goes quickest on a 1.5.1. Is that quick enough, though? Max Verstappen, though, has done a purple first sector, not done a purple middle sector, as Kevin Magnussen goes 4th, and Schumacher goes 5th. For Haas, as Carlos Sainz comes to the line and puts it on the front row for now, but Max Verstappen comes to the line and goes quickest by 1/10 of a second, I believe, from Charles Leclerc, and Perez goes 4th for Red Bull. So Max Verstappen onto provisional pole position. Sergio Perez up to 4th. Fernando Alonso, by the way, is in the pits. Lewis Hamilton, as Mick Schumacher has actually had his time deleted. Lewis Hamilton should be on a flying lap now, but we're not seeing it. But it's currently, with one final run to go, surely in Q3, it is Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Perez, Russell, Ocon, Magnussen, Hamilton, Alonso, and Schumacher. With just over 6.5 minutes remaining. And yeah, Verstappen about or just under 1/10 of a second quicker than Leclerc. It's a good lap by Leclerc, but Max still has the key advantage. And no sign of Lewis Hamilton and an improved lap possibly by him. Here he is. Is this him? No, this is George Russell, who is on a improved lap. He's done a personal best first sector. He's only slightly slower at the moment than Sergio Perez, so he could get himself up to 4th, maybe 3rd if he has a good middle and final sector. Russell, not a good middle sector, 4/10 of a second down on Verstappen. So this will probably keep him, well, if he does go any quicker, Lewis Hamilton is over to the gravel and into the wall. Lewis Hamilton is out. He's had a massive tank slapper as Russell goes 5th, and Hamilton will surely there cause a red flag. Don't know why the red flags are not waving, because Lewis Hamilton is out of qualifying. There you go. Red flag. And Hamilton at turn 7 has turned in and had a massive snap of oversteer and gone straight off into the gravel and straight into the wall as the Verstappen fans cheering, which I really do not like. But what are you going to do about it? Human beings are human beings at the end of the day. And emotion with most human beings comes ahead of intelligence and IQ. And yeah, Hamilton out and will probably end up in P10 for the sprint. What a disaster for Lewis. Let me just put on screen that we have red flag conditions currently with 5.5 minutes remaining. So there you go. Red flag, 5.5 minutes to go. And yeah, Hamilton, I mean, we'll see a replay and see just how that happened, his crash. But to me, looked as though he had a big snap of oversteer when turning into turn 7, and then the car pitched him straight off into the gravel and into the barriers as Lewis Hamilton is now getting out of his Mercedes car. Very badly damaged Mercedes car. I don't think it's damaged enough to, to be possibly taking a penalty for new parts for the sprint race, but he should be okay. And very disappointing for Hamilton because he was looking as though he could have been in this qualifying session up in 4th, 5th, maybe even 3rd place. That is not going to be. And Hamilton now directed towards the medical car. As he's just having a look at the moment at the damage to the Mercedes. And here is a replay. So yeah, through turn 6, he was very good through there. Into turn 7, yeah, massive snap of oversteer and then big impact into the barriers. Not too big, he'll be okay. But, yeah. He definitely, given how he turned into that corner, he definitely would not have expected that snap of oversteer because that was quite a dramatic one. But a costly mistake there for Hamilton, something you don't normally see in qualifying. But it's happened here today. And yeah, just maybe applied too much throttle on the entry to turn 7. Maybe got on the throttle too early. Who knows? But it is a costly mistake there for Lewis Hamilton. And it's caused the red flags to be blown. But the session will get underway again in probably, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes time. The car should be pretty easy to clear away. Hopefully the barriers will be easy to fix. And just looking at Twitter to see if there's any quick news I can bring you. I can already see people angry about the Red Bull fans jumping up and down, cheering Lewis Hamilton crashing, which I have to say is very disappointing. But like I said, I mean, we've seen it with plenty of times in F1, plenty of times in football when like a player goes down injured, the opposite fans cheering. It's what happens. Should it happen? No, but I'm not surprised. We saw this at Spa in 2019 on that fateful Saturday that Lewis Hamilton had a big crash into the first Stavolo, I think it was, and the Verstappen fans there cheered quite heavily for that. So, yeah, it shouldn't happen, but I'm not surprised, and I don't think it's ever going to stop. So nothing we could do about it. Like I said, most human beings, with most people, emotion comes ahead of intelligence, especially when you've had a few beers. As the session, guys, will resume in 5 minutes' time, they say. Yeah, get ready for the final few minutes. As here's a replay of Charles Leclerc, who, I don't know, maybe was complaining about the Mercedes there. I think it was on the inside of the penultimate corner, or in between the penultimate corner and final corner, distracting him, maybe? I don't know. But Leclerc, not too far away from Max Verstappen. Mike Brown says, qualifying on Friday. Are you sure? Practice 2? No, it's sprint race weekend, so this is actually qualifying, Mike. So yeah, sprint race will be tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. UK time. Obviously, I'll be doing a long build-up to the sprint race, and I may as well plug all that now, as session won't be getting underway for another 3.5 minutes, I believe. But yeah, tomorrow, and this goes for anyone new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for this content coming up. I'll be live tomorrow from 12:30 p.m. UK time until 3 p.m. for the sprint race preview. Then I'll be live, obviously, from 3 till 4 for the sprint race watch-along, and then from 4 till 4:30 p.m. for the sprint race reaction. And then I'll be going live at 12 p.m. UK time on Sunday for the race preview, and then at 1:30 p.m. I will begin the race watch along, and that will last until 4 p.m. and then from 4 till 5:30 p.m. UK time will be the race reaction. So make sure to join me for all of that stuff tomorrow and on Sunday as well. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as we do qualifying and race watch alongs for every Grand Prix in Formula 1 in 2022. And for everyone watching, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video on your channel everywhere you can. Dane says emotion over intelligence. That sums up Alonso being too emotional. That's why he says GP2. Yeah, well, we've seen with Fernando plenty of times in the past that emotion comes ahead of brains at times with him. But he's a lot cooler, calmer, nicer, happier than he used to be. Let's see. Any news I can read out quickly? And I can't see anything at the moment in terms of new news. But yeah, the session, it says, will restart in 2 minutes and 22 seconds from when I just said that. So let me just get the timer ready, and the session will get going again at the 5 minute and 29 second mark. So I'll sync up the timing on my screen at the 5 minute mark. Hopefully, no more red flags. As everyone just sat waiting to get going again. And just trying to see if I can find anything on Twitter. I see the FIA is trending, which is interesting. And yeah, most people complaining about how on earth did Sergio Perez get, allowed to enter Q3 when he clearly exceeded track limits? That's very poor from the FIA. Very, very poor. He clearly exceeded it. They should have punished him quicker, because Pierre Gasly, if Perez, if his lap time was deleted, meaning that Perez was knocked out in Q2, then, you know, Pierre Gasly in P11, obviously for the sprint race, he should be able to, be in the top 10 shootout. I mean, with Hamilton's crash as well, Gasly would be on for, ninth place at worst if he was in Q3. So, very poor there. Let me just clear my throat. As the session will restart in 10 seconds from now. And everyone ready to get out there on track. Will we get more than one run? Not sure. Obviously, we've had one run so far, but normally in Q3, you only get 2 proper runs at, for your top 10 positions. But with that red flag coming halfway through the session pretty much, we might get a couple more runs in Q3, or this might be pretty much the final run, who knows, as the session has started. And, oh no, I've, hold on, I need to redo it quick. So, I will get the timer synced up again, guys, at the 4-minute mark here at the end of qualifying. Let me just make sure that I've got it set correctly now. Yes, I have. The qualifying back underway, and we have about 4.5 minutes to go in qualifying. Will it be Verstappen on pole yet again for the 3rd race here at the Red Bull Ring in a row? Or will Charles Leclerc get his 2nd pole position at the Red Bull Ring? His last pole in 2019, also for Ferrari. Or could Carlos Sainz get a 2nd pole position in a row in Formula 1? Or could George Russell get his 1st ever pole position for Mercedes, the lone man for the Mercedes team? And there you go. So 4 minutes now to go in qualifying. Let's see how it ends. As the only car, by the way, on track is George Russell. And the reason he's the only car on track, I believe, is because Mercedes do need an extra warm-up lap at times. So that's why they've sent him out straight away. As everybody else, I think except for one of the Alpines, is in the pits. As let's see what Russell can do now on this final lap. Can he go, or maybe this will be his final lap, we'll have to see. Can he go any higher than P5? Not a personal best first sector for Russell. 10th.5 off Max Verstappen. Good exit, though, from turn 3. And now heads down into turn 4. As Charles Leclerc is now coming out onto track. And so is another car there, I think an Alpine. Red Bull still keeping their cars in the pits. As Russell does a personal best middle sector, but I'm not sure it's good enough to get him any higher than 5th place if he continues on this lap. It might get him up to 4th, but I'm not sure it'll be any better than that, as a car has gone off. It's George Russell, and he's gone off, caused another red flag. Didn't quite see that as I looked away from the screen, and going into the final corner, George Russell has spun, lost the rear end, and gone rear end in first into the barriers on the exit of the final corner. So that's another red flag, and Russell now out of the session and now getting out of his car. There shouldn't be, though, too long of a delay, but Mercedes, both cars crashing. Who was it in the chat who said both cars are going to crash in Q3? Whoever you are Nostradamus, because that was a great prediction. But here we go. And yeah, just too much speed carried into the final corner and then went in rear end first. Hopefully does not require a new gearbox for going in rear end first, which we have seen in the past. And yeah, just was way too fast into that final corner with Russell. So Russell will end up, well, at best in 5th, but with the other cars Ocon, Magnussen, Alonso, Schumacher being able to do a final run in qualifying, he might end up a lot lower on the grid than he would have wanted. And it was yet again, as they turned into the corner, a snap of oversteer, just like we saw with Lewis Hamilton. So the Mercedes car at the rear end, not very stable for some reason here at the end of qualifying. Either it's that or the two drivers have just pushed way too hard on their qualifying laps. I think also that will contribute towards that. And yeah, it was Butterfly Blue Shorts who said that. So if you're still listening or watching, yeah, tell me everything you know. As Max Verstappen, I think, was just wheeled out of his garage, or it just come out of his garage, and then has now been pushed back in. So we're going to have 2 minutes and 31 seconds to go until the end of qualifying, which means when the session restarts, everybody will have to come out on track to get in that final outlap, which will be probably 90 seconds, and then it'll be obviously a minute and 6 seconds for the final lap. So when the session restarts, we will see everybody that can come out on track, except for the two Mercedes cars, come out and do their final laps in qualifying. I noticed, though, I don't know if it was because Alonso actually did a lap time, but he did actually go up to P7 for some reason. Did Alonso, as Russell walks back into the pits. And he'll be hoping now that he doesn't fall any lower than 5th. Because if Mercedes were to start like 7th and 10th, or 8th and 10th, that would be a pretty bad result for them. And it would massively affect their weekend. And no word as of yet as to when the session will be restarting. And just having a look on Twitter to see if there's any updates I could bring you guys. And no, nothing I can see at the moment. But all I can see really is people moaning about how is Sergio Perez been allowed to go into Q3. But this should be a pretty exciting end to qualifying, with everybody piling onto the track and getting in the final lap straight away rather than waiting in the pits. And there's a replay of Russell and what happened. And then he walked across the final corner and back into the pits. Russell, turn 10 incident noted for entering the track without permission. Was Russell there? So I'm guessing. So he walked literally across the racetrack, even though there were red flags. As the session, by the way, guys, will resume at, I think it says 18:18 local time, but the 8s look like zeros. So, yeah, I think it's in 4 minutes' time that the session will restart. But I think Russell there did not ask the permission of a marshal or something like that. So maybe Russell will get a fine or a reprimand for that. I'd be surprised, given the context, if he gets a penalty, because there was no cars on track, plus the pit entry is before then, so it's not like he was going to walk out into the middle of the track with a car being there. So, yeah. And yet, that entering the track without permission will be investigated after the session. And yes, session restarts, guys, in 4 minutes' time. And hopefully, in the final 2.5 minutes, there will not be a red flag. because this has been a pretty stop-start and boring Q3 compared to what we're used to. Very hot and sunny day though at the Red Bull Ring. Beautiful day in the Styrian Mountains. One of the most beautiful Grand Prix on the calendar. Certainly a Grand Prix that I want to attend in the future because it just looks like a beautiful place to go to, especially when the weather is nice and does seem to have a decent atmosphere as well. And I have heard from people that it is a pretty good Grand Prix to go to. So if you can ever get yourselves to an Austrian Grand Prix, then it would be, great experience for yourself. Crowd waving currently to the cameras, and we're just waiting for the session to get going again. Just trying to have a quick look to see if I can find any news quickly. And nope, not at the moment. Nothing new, or nothing that I can tell you at the moment. Butterfly Blue Short says, good to see Merc challenging though. 3 big teams up there, all good. Says, I'm not emotionally invested. Merc seem too eager to get pole. Marco Sar says, the Merc is quick though. Yeah, that's the positive thing, is that, and also what is positive is that if they do start even, say, 8th and 10th, they have the pace to come through and still finish in 5th and 6th, meaning that they will set themselves up still nicely for the race on Sunday to have a chance at a podium, maybe even better if they've got very good race pace like we saw at Silverstone. Remember though, guys, the tyres this weekend are the 3 softest compounds, so with Mercedes, looking after their tyres as well as they do, and with the tyres being even softer than normal, that's going to help them. So I hope, honestly, Russell can stay in 5th, because it would still give us something interesting from the Mercedes team point of view going forward for the rest of the weekend. So we're about 1 minute and 10 seconds away from the restart of the session. Let's see if there's any other comments here in chat. Silverback Orangutan says, good lord, if somebody told me Haas would be in Q3 both cars this year, I would have lost a lot of money. I definitely did not have them in the top 10 this weekend with both cars. I thought they would be decent in qualifying because I know both drivers go well here and are pretty quick around this track, but I didn't think it would be double Q3 appearance. I thought that was a bit too much to ask, but yeah. By the way, I've just seen a stat on Twitter. Lance Stroll has today recorded his 56th Q1 elimination, and he now overtakes Adrian Sutil and Heikki Kovalainen for 3rd on the list of most Q1 exits. He's had a pretty poor time in qualifying, but we're not surprised by this because we know that he's pretty bad when it comes to qualifying. And the session, guys, is back underway. And the first car leading the cars away, the first 2 cars are the Haas cars. And then it's an Alpine, not sure who it is. But I'll sync the timer up in about 15 seconds time at the 2-minute mark. As we've got 2 minutes to go, guys, in qualifying. Let me know who you think is going to get pole position. Will it be Verstappen, Leclair, Sainz, or Perez? And there you go, 2 minutes left. And hopefully no more red flags. As the Haas's warm up their tyres. With Mercedes, though, kind of out of play now, would be interesting to see if Haas or Alpine could capitalise on that. Get a good grid position. I mean, at the moment, Alpine have a pretty good grid position of 6th and 7th. As we're now looking at Charles Leclerc on the exit of turn 4 into turn 5 on his outlap, and Max Verstappen now approaching turn 4. They'll all be able to easily start their final flying laps, as they are already pretty far around the lap, and obviously the shortest lap of the year, so it doesn't take that long, even when you're not going that quickly, to do an outlap at the Red Bull Ring. But for me, as long as Max Verstappen can improve his lap time by about 1/10 of a second, that should be enough. But Charles Leclerc, we know, is a fantastic driver on qualifying day. Can he get yet another pole position in 2022? He now begins his final run in qualifying. Very good run through turn 1. Now over to DRS on the run up to turn 2. Up to turn 3, sorry. Does a personal best first sector. But it is not quicker than Verstappen. Still 1/10 of a second off. Shows you how quick that Red Bull is in that first sector, which is mostly flat out. Into turn 4. Leclerc comes. Verstappen has not done a personal best first sector. As Leclerc now through turn 5, turn 6. Looking pretty good. And has not done, though, a personal best middle sector. That might cost him here. He's still about 1/10 of a second away from being quicker than Max, as Mick Schumacher is up to 8. Ocon has finished up in P6 for Alpine. Can Charles Leclerc get pole position for the second time here in Austria? Comes to the line. And he does. He goes quickest by 7/800ths of a second. So at the moment, Leclerc on provisional pole position. Alonso ends up in 9th place. Carlos Sainz goes second for Ferrari. Verstappen has not done a personal best middle sector, but he improves his final sector. And Max Verstappen is on provisional. He's not on provisional pole position. He is on pole position here in Austria. Max Verstappen by 300ths of a second in front of the Dutch army is on pole for the sprint race tomorrow. Brilliant lap there by Verstappen. How did he, though, still improve his time? He didn't improve his first or second sector, yet improved his final sector and still went quicker than the two Ferraris and got pole position. Brilliant there from Verstappen. But let's quickly conclude the order, the final finishing order here in qualifying. Max Verstappen will be starting the sprint on pole from Leclerc 2nd, Sainz 3rd, Perez 4th, Russell 5th, Ocon 6th, and then Magnussen, Schumacher on the 4th row of the grid for Haas, Alonso 9th, Hamilton 10th, and then Gasly 11th, Alban 12th, Bottas 13th, Sonoda 14th, Norris 15th, Ricardo 16th, Stroll 17th, Zhou 18th, Latifi 19th, and Sebastian Vettel in 20th place. That is your starting grid for tomorrow's sprint. And make sure, guys, to join me for tomorrow's sprint race. I'll be live starting at 12:30 p.m. UK time to begin the sprint race preview right after practice 2 finishes. And I'll be doing the sprint race preview from 12:30 until 3 p.m. And then from 3 till 4 p.m. will be the sprint race watch-along. And then from 4 till 4:30 p.m. UK time tomorrow will be the sprint race reaction. So make sure to join me for that tomorrow. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. And make sure to smash the like button for everyone watching. And don't forget as well to share this video and channel every way you can. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. And don't forget to join the Discord server, link below in the description and probably in the chat as well. But guys, until my sprint race build-up, coverage and reaction tomorrow, it has been me, ChazHD. Goodbye.